If you want more era, this is how to get more era. Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Today on the channel, we're going to be looking at an expansion for Era. Of course, if you saw my review of Era, you will know that I like the game quite a bit. The more I play this game, the more I like it. So when I saw there's an expansion that has more buildings, has roads, has rivers, and more treachery, flooding, I was quite intrigued. So today, we will dive right in. How does this play? What do you get in this box? Is it an essential upgrade to the Era base game? Let's find out. First, cue the thunder. So the radar overview for the Rivers and Roads expansion for Era looks like this. You get a whole bunch of new different buildings, which we'll go over momentarily, as well as you get some nice little player aids. You would use these on top of the shields as well. So it has the expansion content, and then it has, you know, scenario 1 if you're playing with just the roads, and then scenario 2 is just the rivers, and then scenario 3 is the rivers and the roads, and shows you all the things. These are the buildings that you would use in that scenario. As well, it has an updated scorecard, which has all the different things, different buildings, as well as a few empty spaces. So if you're using one of the collector series, you can just write in which one you're using and then score it. So very nice score pad in that regard. And then you also get a stack of these cards that kind of replace the little circle tokens that show you how far along the game is. But these are really, really nice because A, it shows you what if it's base game or expansion, as well as it shows you the cost and kind of what it does and how many you need. So really nice. So if you're playing with the base game, you know, you just take these things out, you put them beside the general supply of all the buildings, and then you kind of know. So for new players, this is kind of really beneficial. And then you also get the ones for the expansion. So I'll show you some of these buildings. You have the wharf. This must be built over water or over your river, and then it lets you swap one resource for another resource. So that's pretty sweet. You got the chapel. It lets you reroll one die after your third roll, including a skull. So it's kind of like the clergy die, but not as powerful, and the building is a little bit smaller, so kind of makes sense. Next up, you got the trade fair. This is pretty sweet, and I will say this also, this plastic on the trade fair is much harder plastic. It's not as bendy as some of the other buildings in the base game. But this one lets you force a trade 1-for-1 after the extort phase. So if you know you're really needing some trade goods and other people have them, you can trade your weed away for a trade good. They cannot refuse, and if it's successful, meaning people actually have stuff to trade, you gain culture, and if you have this beside of a road, you gain 2 culture. So that is fantastic. You got the joinery, gives you an extra build each build step. Armory, 2 swords in the extort phase. The quarry, I love this one. It must be built on the outside of your domain. So if you were building it, it would have to be on the outside, meaning it can never be walled in. But then on the collect phase, you always get 2 rocks. And I don't know about you, but those are the things that I can seem to never roll. Bad luck, I guess. But they looks pretty sweet. See if I can get a better. There we are. There's the quarry. And then we're back to the wharf. You have the walls that have gates. So this is how you would then build your wall over a river, much like that. And then you have the roads, and the roads, you know, you got the bridges, and you got some short roads as well as some really long roads or longer roads. So they look pretty cool. And then finally you also get a new treachery. You have flooded tiles, so when you build these, they must touch the river, and then they just start building out like that. So that is what you get. Let's move on to the final forecast. So the final forecast for Era Medieval Age, the Rivers and Roads expansion. As you saw in the radar overview, this is just more buildings. This is more Era. What you know from the base game, this is just more of it. And for me, this is more of stuff that I absolutely love. I enjoy the base game. The more I've played it as of late, the more I've been loving it that much more. There's just something about rolling dice, pushing your luck, building different things, hoping to become the best, the most prestigious, and actually win the game, which for me doesn't happen very often. But this just adds more buildings. It adds 3 modules, the rivers, the roads, and then you can combine the 2 to have a rivers and roads. And each of them will play a little bit different because you won't be using all the buildings in each game, and I think that's really, really cool. The rivers, you got to worry about the flooded areas. So instead of scorched earth, you're going to be having buildings potentially removed due to flooding. You have also, the river, or the roads, pardon me. And I didn't say in the Raider overview, but whoever has the longest continuous path road gets a bonus as well. So that's something else that you can try to work towards. And I also love it in the rivers expansion that all the buildings touching the river are worth triple. So if you have it fully walled and it's touching a river, it's worth triple. But then you're kind of pushing your luck that it's not going to get flooded at the same time. This is just fantastic. I love the new buildings. I love the quarry that gives you rock every time. You want to just attack your enemies, build some armories, and get a bunch of swords each turn. If you want to go after culture, build the trade fair, put it next to a road, and you're really cruising along because you can trade, some stuff that you have a surplus of for maybe trade goods or rocks if you can't seem to be rolling them. But just overall, just a fantastic expansion to an already fantastic game. I love those reference cards that it shows how many you use per game, the cost of them, and what they do. Maybe your eyesight's not as good, and so those player shields are a little bit tough to see. Those reference cards are just right there by the reserve. You flip them over when all those buildings are gone, and instead of the little tokens, and it just looks good and it works well. And just overall, man, I just absolutely love this expansion. You can play with everything mixed together. I think they call it a mega game in the rule set, where you use all the buildings. You don't take any out, so you can have a ton of variety and just good stuff. Pretty much, if you want more era, this is how to get more era. Of course, there's the collector's sets as well, which are cool. I've reviewed the first one. I'll post a link to that video in the description of this one. But if you like the game, you want more of it, I highly recommend checking this expansion out. I wouldn't say it's a must-have, but it's a must-have if you love the game as much as I do. So there you are. I'm giving this one 80%, just like I gave the base game. Fantastic game, Era Medieval Age, with the expansion. My name is Brent. Check us out on Facebook, Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Remember, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.